During a bipartisan leadership summit, DeSantis told Obama his presidency was a complete failure that weakened America. Obama's response, using presidential records and historical achievements, left the Florida governor's political ambitions in ruins. Welcome to Real Life Stories. Before we dive into this explosive political confrontation, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from, and if you believe stories like this need to be told, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like this video. Because what you'll learn tonight reveals how presidential experience destroyed rising political ambition. The Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Simi Valley, California, was hosting its annual Bipartisan Leadership Summit, bringing together the most influential political figures from both parties to discuss America's future. The grand setting, with its sweeping views of the Simi Hills, seemed appropriate for the kind of high-minded political discourse the event was meant to showcase. Instead, it became the site of one of the most devastating political takedowns in modern American history. Governor Ron DeSantis had been building momentum for his presidential ambitions, positioning himself as the new face of conservative leadership. At 44, he represented a younger generation of Republicans, eager to move beyond the Trump era while maintaining its populist energy. This summit was his chance to establish himself on the national stage, opposite the Democratic Party's most respected elder statesman. Barack Obama, now in his early 60s, carried himself with the quiet dignity of someone who had held the world's most powerful office for 8 years. He had come to the summit not to engage in political combat, but to discuss unity and governance in challenging times. The forum's moderator, veteran journalist Judy Woodruff, had structured the discussion around the theme, Leadership Lessons for America's Future. The format was simple. Prominent leaders from both parties would share their perspectives on governance, with opportunities for respectful exchange. DeSantis sat at the polished oak panel table, his navy suit crisp, his demeanor radiating the confidence of someone who believed his moment had arrived. Obama sat 3 seats away, relaxed in his characteristic lean-back posture, occasionally taking notes on a legal pad. The first hour proceeded predictably, with various governors and former officials offering measured remarks about bipartisanship and effective governance. DeSantis had been patient, waiting for the right moment to make his mark. That moment came when Woodruff asked about learning from past administrations. DeSantis leaned forward into his microphone, his voice carrying the practiced authority of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Well, Judy, I think we need to be honest about recent history. The Obama administration represents everything that's wrong with liberal governance. The room shifted perceptibly. This wasn't the respectful discourse the forum had advertised. Obama looked up from his notes but said nothing, his expression neutral. DeSantis continued, emboldened by what he perceived as Obama's passive response. Let's look at the facts. Under President Obama, we saw 8 years of economic stagnation, foreign policy disasters, and the expansion of federal government that weakened American strength both at home and abroad. Several participants exchanged uncomfortable glances. This was quickly moving beyond respectful disagreement. The Obama presidency was, frankly, a failure, DeSantis declared, his voice rising slightly. It weakened America's standing in the world, divided our country along racial lines, and left working families behind while enriching coastal elites. The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. All eyes turned to Obama, who set down his pen and straightened in his chair. Governor DeSantis, Obama began, his voice carrying the measured tone that had defined his political career. I appreciate your perspective, though. I think the American people might have a different view of those 8 years. DeSantis smiled confidently. This was exactly the engagement he had wanted. Let's talk about economic stagnation, Obama continued, his tone remaining conversational but gaining precision. When I took office in January 2009, we were losing 800,000 jobs per month. The unemployment rate was 7.8% and climbing toward 10%. The Dow Jones had fallen from over 14,000 to under 7,000. Obama's voice gained strength as he continued. When I left office, unemployment was 4.7%. We had created over 15 million jobs, and the Dow had more than doubled. We had 75 straight months of job growth, the longest streak in American history. DeSantis tried to interject, but Obama raised his hand slightly. You mentioned foreign policy disasters, Obama said, his tone still calm, but now carrying an edge of authority that filled the room. During my administration, we eliminated Osama bin Laden, ended combat operations in Iraq, negotiated the Iran nuclear deal that prevented a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, and restored America's standing with our allies after years of unilateral action. The room was completely silent now. Obama's command of specific details was impressive, but it was his presidential bearing that was truly striking. "Governor, you run one state with 22 million people," Obama continued, his voice taking on the tone of someone providing instruction. "I ran a nation of 320 million people, managing relationships with 195 countries, overseeing a $4 trillion budget, and commanding the most powerful military in world history." DeSantis's confident expression was beginning to waver. "You mentioned dividing the country along racial lines," Obama said, his voice now carrying real emotion. "I was the first African-American president in our nation's history. Every day for 8 years, I faced criticism that no previous president had endured. Yet I maintained the dignity of the office and tried to bring Americans together." Obama leaned forward slightly, his gaze fixed on DeSantis. "You want to talk about division? Let's discuss your own record. You've banned books in schools, restricted voting access, attacked LGBTQ+ Americans, and used state power to punish private companies for their political views. That's not leadership, Governor. That's authoritarianism." The comparison was devastating. DeSantis looked visibly uncomfortable for the first time. "And let's talk about federal overreach," Obama continued, now fully in command of the room. "During Hurricane Ian last year, your state requested $27 billion in federal disaster relief. You didn't complain about federal overreach when FEMA was rescuing your constituents and rebuilding your infrastructure." DeSantis tried to respond. "That's completely different, is it?" Obama interrupted gently. "Because it seems like federal government is bad when it's helping working families get health care, but good when it's helping your state recover from natural disasters." The logic was unassailable, and DeSantis appeared to realize he was in over his head. Obama wasn't finished. "Governor, you've been in office for 4 years. I served 8 years as president during one of the most challenging periods in American history. Global financial crisis, 2 wars, international terrorism, climate change, and a pandemic that began just as I was leaving office." He paused, letting that sink in. "Your signature achievements include fighting with Disney, banning math textbooks, and flying migrants to Martha's Vineyard as a political stunt. My signature achievements include saving the American economy, expanding healthcare to 30 million Americans, and leading the world through multiple international crises." The contrast was stark and humiliating. DeSantis looked like a student being corrected by his professor. "But here's what concerns me most, Governor," Obama said, his voice now carrying genuine disappointment. "You're a smart man. You went to Harvard Law School. You served in the military. You have the education and experience to know better." Obama leaned back in his chair, his tone becoming almost paternal. "Yet you choose to engage in the politics of division and resentment. You choose to attack me not based on policy differences, but because you think it will help your presidential ambitions." The room was electric with tension. Everyone could see that DeSantis had been completely outclassed. "Leadership isn't about tearing down your predecessors," Obama continued. "It's about building something better. It's about bringing out the best in people, not the worst. It's about expanding opportunity, not restricting it." Obama looked directly at DeSantis. "You want to be president someday? I can see that. But leadership requires more than political calculation and cultural grievances. It requires the ability to inspire, to unite, and to solve complex problems that affect millions of lives." The final blow was delivered with surgical precision. "Governor DeSantis, you've spent 4 years governing 0.7% of the American population, and your primary accomplishments involve restricting rights and freedoms. I spent 8 years governing 100% of Americans, expanding rights and opportunities while navigating global crises." Obama's voice took on the tone of someone delivering a verdict. "The American people don't need another politician who succeeds by dividing us. They need leaders who can bring us together. And frankly, based on what I've seen from your record and your comments today, I don't believe you're ready for that responsibility." The silence that followed was deafening. DeSantis sat frozen, his political calculation having backfired spectacularly. What was meant to be his national coming-out party had become a masterclass in why experience matters in leadership. Judy Woodruff, clearly uncomfortable with the turn the discussion had taken, tried to move to another topic, but the damage was already done. Within hours, clips of Obama's systematic dismantling of DeSantis were viral across social media. Political analysts called it one of the most devastating political responses in recent memory. Conservative commentators struggled to defend DeSantis's performance, while Democratic leaders praised Obama's dignity and precision. The confrontation didn't just expose the difference between presidential experience and gubernatorial politics, it revealed the fundamental difference between leadership and ambition. DeSantis had come to the Reagan Library hoping to establish himself as the future of the Republican Party. Instead, he learned why presidential gravitas can't be manufactured or imitated. As the forum ended and participants filed out, Obama approached DeSantis privately. "Governor," he said quietly, "if you ever decide you want to have a real conversation about governance, my door is always open." It was a gesture of grace that made DeSantis's earlier attacks look even more petty by comparison. The rising Republican star's political future hadn't just been challenged, it had been systematically dismantled by someone who understood the difference between running for office and actually holding it.